Hi, I'm Christina Rodenbeck, and I'm here with my friend Sally Kirkman to talk about astrology. I'm from the Oxford Astrologer. She's from sallykirkman.com, and we both also write horoscopes weekly and monthly. Please check out our websites. Hello, Sally.
Hi, Christina. How are you? Have you had a good month? How's it been for you?
Mixed. The Mercury retrograde has been kind of annoying. My house is now awash with dirty laundry because our gray water tank is not working, the pump in the gray water tank, which is like all the water that we collect for the rain. That's what we wash our clothes in and flush some of our loos with. And the electricians are in a muddle, the plumbers are in the muddle about it, nobody knows why, blah, blah, blah. So actually I'm not even going to tell you how long now since we had any clean sheets, etc.
Oh no, that's a bit chaotic, isn't it? It's kind of chaotic.
It's chaotic, and the Mercury retrograde is going across that sort of bottom bit of my chart.
Yeah,
it's stirring things up at Schloss Oxford Astrology.
Yeah. It has, I have to say this has been quite a bonkers Mercury retrograde, and I think a lot of people have found that actually. Facebook, and that night when Facebook and WhatsApp and everything went down for 6 hours, it was the end of the world for some people.
I just thought, oh my God, maybe it'll stay down forever and then we won't have to deal with that thing anymore.
Yeah. There's a part of me that thought, oh, interesting. Well, that's gone then. It didn't affect sort of my world personally, but there was that. For me, there's been a phone mast down. I'm in Covent Garden still, and there's still a phone mast down. So the internet connection doesn't work that well all the time. And they told me a few weeks ago, it'll probably be fixed in a day or 2 days. And then I get a text saying, it could be another 3 days. Then I get a text saying, it could be another 5 days. It's still not fixed. And it's not going to get fixed until Mercury turns direct. We're actually recording this when Mercury is still retrograde. So that's bonkers. And then the other thing that I had the most hysterical Mercury retrograde moment when I'd confirmed by text an appointment at the dentist. And it said, secure your booking, click book, went along. And they didn't have any note of me in the diary. And it turned out that, the receptionist actually said to me, oh, we need to send you a confirmation of your confirmation for it to be confirmed. And the confirmation message never got to me. It was just a hysterical moment. It was like, okay, I'll go away. I'll try again later. That was just so classic, really, isn't it?
Were you allowed to make an appointment in person, or did you have to go away and do the whole confirmation of your confirmation?
No, I could do that in person. I preferred that rather than going back to technology. So I'll be going back at a later date.
Well, maybe the electricians who are supposed to be fixing your mast should come and fix my tank. And my electricians could come fix your mast, and that might work better. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe trade places and see if that's any better. Seeing that's any better. But also, the other big thing for me, my Libra daughter turned 21. So we had marvelous birthday celebrations. And I did make sure that I double checked everything that was happening beforehand. I thought, I'm going to go in person, double check it's all in the diary, everything's ready to go. So I did that, which is always good to do. But you've been finding some things, haven't you, during Mercury retrograde too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My daughter's glasses, which have been missing for months, appeared. Which is just, as anybody who wears glasses knows, the loss of the glasses is just a continuous problem for people with glasses. And hers had been on for months, and they emerged, for example, which was a very, very Mercury retrograde thing to happen, happily. But let's look, what about the upcoming month and, Scorpio in general? What do you think about, speaking as a Scorpio, Sally, what's your feeling about Scorpios? Is that like confirming the confirmation?
I'm not ready for Scorpio season this time. Again, I know we're recording this a little bit before it starts because it's it's a bit later, isn't it, always? I think it's the 23rd when the sun enters Scorpio. So I'm not quite ready. I'm still kind of hanging on to Libra season, which I've enjoyed a lot. But I do love Scorpio season. It's my birthday, so that's always nice. And it is that kind of, you really have to kind of physically change season somehow. You have to get yourself ready to change season. You've had these light evenings, and then suddenly things will go dark at the end of October. The night draws in, so you have to think, okay, what now? Okay, cozy nights by the fire. It's a different kind of vibe that goes on. So yeah, I do love that. I mean, we're very lucky actually in the UK where we both live, that there's this wonderful transition of the seasons, so you really sense the seasons shifting, which I do enjoy. And for me, Scorpio, as the clocks go forward, and sort of embodies that in a way. So that's one thing. I mean, how do you feel about Scorpios? Be nice.
I like them. I'm really scared of them.
Yeah.
I love Scorpio season. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I love the drama. I love the, beauty of seeing the trees revealing their skeletons to us. And I love that sense of mystery and the door opening into beginning. It's not the beginning of winter, it's it's a fixed season, isn't it? It's a fixed sign, Scorpio. Fixed water, which is ice, of course. I love the intensity of it, and knowing we are stepping into the winter, and I quite enjoy the winter. And of course, the other thing we're lucky about here and in many parts of the world is that there are a lot of fire festivals. I don't know what time Diwali is this year, but we have the 5th of November in England, when giant bonfires everywhere and fireworks. And there's it's very pagan feeling.
And there's we have Halloween, which is admittedly very commercial these days, but even so, it's ritual, it's celebration. Day of the Dead, and that's one of the real kind of strengths of Scorpio season is a reminder of the dark. It's a reminder of that cycle of life, death, and rebirth that particularly here in the West, we can sometimes we sort of like, oof, no, not going there, don't talk to me about that, because it's painful. It's it's deep, dark emotions. Fixed water, Scorpio, deep, dark emotions. I mean, as a Scorpio, I'm sure all Scorpios can resonate with that ability to spiral inwards and get kind of quite the tortured soul of the Scorpio. Because you go to places, you go to really deep, dark places, but that's where this actually hidden rich is. I mean, I think Pluto being co-ruler of Scorpio is a reminder of that. There are hidden riches, there are treasures in that darkness, and then it's the phoenix reborn from the ashes. So I think that's one of, for me, the core pieces of Scorpios, that you're willing to do that. You're not in denial about things. You don't avoid things in that way. You go in deep. You really venture into unknown territory, which is, I think, is a wonderful piece of the Scorpio puzzle.
Just as a kind of, just to be a bit trivial, have you worked out your Halloween costume yet?
No, I'm not going to dress up on Halloween, actually. Okay. Sorry.
Oh.
I haven't for years. I used to enjoy getting Halloween outfits for my daughter when they were, endless Halloween parties. So that was always great fun. And I'd probably make more of an effort then. But we used to put the dog in a cape.
Oh.
A little cape, he was a black Labrador, so he had a little cape as well. When the kids came trick or treating.
Yeah, we used to do Scary House, obviously, with music and things like that out the front. But I don't know if we're going to do that this year. All my neighbors have COVID. P.S.
Yeah. Well, perhaps not the best time to be trick or treating, knocking on doors, is it then?
Yeah, exactly. That's, to be specific, my neighbor that way and my neighbor that way, they both have COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe I won't be trick or treating around there.
No. So favorite Scorpios, have you got any?
Shah Rukh Khan, of course, the Indian actor, is my favorite Scorpio, one of my favorite Scorpios, the sexiest man alive.
Okay.
Voted continuously, who is not only the sexiest man alive, but he's like one of the princes of India, as in he's incredibly well, he's incredibly wealthy. I mean, there was a time in the 1980s and 90s where every Indian film seemed to have star Shah Rukh Khan. Yours? Just one? You're allowed one after that.
Okay, and I'm really embarrassed. I've never heard of him. Oh my God. I'm going to have to now Google, aren't I?
You are. You're going to have to go Google.
Yeah.
Try him in, I don't know, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham or something like that.
Okay.
I'm not very good at the names of Indian movies, but he's in a lot.
Okay. Oh, fascinating.
Him.
Yes. There's, I have to say, my again, sort of archetypal Scorpio was always Sylvia Plath, the poet.
Yes, that's cheerful.
Sorry.
So, sexiest man alive and Sylvia Plath.
Well, she,
sexy too. She has some sort of sexy poetry. She married a sexy guy who wasn't very nice to her. So
I discovered her when I was at university, which is a great time to discover her poets, particularly for a Scorpio. And it turned out she has the same birthday as me, 27th of October, obviously not the same year. But she died, committed suicide, the winter I was born, which was one of the coldest winters on record. I think Lake Windermere froze over. And there's pictures of me in my pram on Windermere, just in the pram on my own, no one with me, which is always a bit worrying looking back on those. So yeah, when I discovered her, there was a bit of me that thought, oh, that's really interesting. Same birthday, she dies, I'm born. So straight away into that, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth.
Have you read Ted Hughes' birthday letters?
Yes, I have.
Because there's a lot of astrology in there.
Yeah, I know.
Ted Hughes was her husband, who wasn't very nice to her.
A Leo, wasn't he? He was a Leo. Ted.
Leo. He was not anyway. Let's move on.
Yeah. So she's still my favorite Scorpio. Sorry, and her poetry is fantastic. If you've not read it, I mean, all really Scorpio themes. Lady Lazarus, Daddy, they're really sort of dark but incredible poems. So she's my favorite still.
Okay, well, that's good. And I'm glad we have a contrast there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so month ahead. What's well, so we're going to be looking at from 23rd of October, which is when the sun goes into Scorpio.
Yeah.
And what does it leave? Is it the 23rd or the 22nd of November that it leaves?
It's the 22nd. It's the 22nd it leaves us. I mean, it's a very Scorpio month, actually, because, of course, Mars is going to move into Scorpio. It's sign of rulership, and that happens on October the 30th. And then we'll be in Scorpio throughout November into December. So, only once every 2 years do we get Mars sort of power, passion, action in Scorpio, one of its two signs of rulership. So immediately that's really kind of strong to have that. And we have Mercury, the communication planet, also moving into Scorpio. I think it's on November the 5th, bonfire night. So there's kind of a lot of power and energy in Scorpio, I think, this season.
And I'd add to that, just for people to think about, which is that Mars has been in Libra, very close to the sun for all of October, and Mars and the sun are going to be pretty close together for a lot of November as well. So they're kind of, I mean, they're not close, so they're beginning to sort of separate, but there's been this sense of Mars and the sun, of these two very hot planets working together. So there's been kind of, I don't know if people have found that they've been, during October kind of rowing with their partners or things like that, so Libra stuff. But the Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio is a different kettle of fish, and so is the sun in Scorpio, because we're talking about darker things, deeper things. Again, it is quite sexy having Mars in Scorpio, because this is the planet of libido in its own sign, so very strong. And Mars in Scorpio is completely different from Mars in Aries, which is its other sign of rulership.
Yeah.
So Scorpio is about focus and getting straight to the point and getting stuff done. And I have a feeling that November is going to be a very good month in general for getting stuff done. Why? Because all the planets have now turned direct, pretty much, except for Chiron. So everything is swooshing ahead.
Yeah.
Except for Chiron and Uranus. Those two are not moving direct, but everything else moved direct, turned direct in October. Sun's making this working with Mars. Everything's moving forward. So all the stuff that was stuck is moving ahead. And I think that people are going to be very busy, frankly.
Yeah, I've actually felt it. I've really felt it. I mean, that Sun Mars, having Mars, I suppose Scorpio's ruling planet next to the Sun. I'm so productive at the moment. There's suddenly no dithering. It's kind of like I really feel like there's this, right, I've got a lot to do, get on and do it. And I'm really hoping that continues throughout Scorpio. I kind of feel like it will, because Mars has got this real strength about it.
Yeah, it definitely will. I'm sure that it will. And because all the other planets are moving forward. And in fact, I think it may become more focused and less there will be fewer problems, like my electricity and your telephone mouse. That's all going to be fixed.
Yeah.
Because Mercury turns direct. Mercury is about to turn direct.
Yeah, as we're speaking.
As we're speaking. Gosh, I wish it would pull its finger out.
It's getting there. It's not far now from, I don't know, we're talking on 15th, 14th, something like that, of October. So it's nearly there. It's nearly there. So by the time people are listening into this, hopefully there'll have been some real significant turning points.
Well,
October the 18th, Sun and Jupiter, Mercury, Jupiter, both turning direct. So hopefully, there is this feeling of a sense of being able to move forward, plans coming together.
Well, I see Mars goes into Scorpio on the 30th of October, sort of behind the Sun and giving it that sort of push of energy. And then, I find the new moon really fascinating on the 4th of November, because you've got Mars and the Sun and the moon all sitting there in Scorpio, and they're directly opposite Uranus in Taurus. But not just sort of directly opposite, like super, super, super close opposition. That new moon is right opposite Uranus, which does look like change. Something's going to change. Something's going to shift. For Taurians, it's a very important new moon. It's like a change of gear, isn't it? In fact, I think for everybody, it's a change of gear. And I noticed that it's making that square still to the Saturn in Aquarius. So it's important for Aquarians too, that kind of shift that's going to be happening around that new moon. If you want to shift something, that's the time to kind of push the wheel, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it is important on this new moon. Sometimes I think the interesting thing with astrology, sometimes we can almost sit back and let life happen. And with astrology, you think, oh, what's going to happen under this transit or something? Or you can do the opposite, which I'm always trying to advise my clients to do. Take advantage of it, make the most of it, actually engage with that new opportunity. And I think this new moon in particular on November the 4th is about that. It's like, really, what can you do? What gear can you shift into? What needs, like with Taurus, how can you change your attitude in some way with Uranus and Taurus to improve a relationship? Do you let go and move on? Or do you need to change the way you look at a relationship? Because everything's in Scorpio, which is Taurus relationship sector. So I think it's really a positive new moon to engage with actively. And that's also the message of Mars moving through Scorpio, actually. Wherever this Scorpio-Taurus axis falls, what can you do to shift things on, to move things on?
Traction, isn't it? That's what we're talking about. There's traction with this new moon and the Mars going in on the 30th. Wherever this is in your chart. So, for Taurians, it's possibly about relationships, a new relationship happening, a surprise new relationship, or that you initiate a new relationship. And similarly, actually, frankly, for Scorpios, there may be a surprise new relationship or a surprise new you. And then for Aquarians, this is about work. What's happening at work? Are you going to start a new job? Are you going to start it's a new chapter opening very suddenly? And actually, because Uranus is one of those planets that can be good, can be bad. All of them can be.
Yeah.
Quite often it's a good surprise, or an opening or something, or somebody comes into your life.
Yeah.
And I think also for Leos, I think this is a really important new moon setup. There's no planet in Leo, but there's your sun, your ruler, right in the heart of it, and it's across important angles of your chart. So for Leos, it's about a new start at home and possibly some opportunity at work as well. So and I think this is I think one of the things about Mars and Scorpio and this Mars Sun energy is to say yes, because quite often, because I agree with you about astrology, you want to work with it. Yeah. Sometimes the thing to work with is to, it's a matter of restraint and then action, and then restraint and then action. And or holding back, letting the stuff flow past if it's the bad stuff, and then grabbing on if there's good things happening. And this is what's happening now, is that there's action, there's work involved, because Saturn is engaged with these planets right now. Saturn always suggests that there's going to be some work that you have to do. But Uranus suggests that there's a surprise or a lucky strike or something. So around that 4th of November time, I think that people, you should be saying yes to stuff, people, and expect something unexpected, perhaps.
And there's this, I'm finding also there's a theme that's going on at the moment. Partly, with the Saturn Uranus, you can see it. Saturn is, more about endings, maybe saying no to things. Uranus is something new coming in. There's a theme there. And then also, as we've been talking about probably over the last couple of months, also Jupiter and Pluto remain working hand in hand. They're in a semi-sextile, Jupiter Aquarius, Pluto in Capricorn, until the end of the year. And again, Pluto negates and Jupiter brings in new opportunities. So it does feel as we're, moving towards the end of the year, there is this, maybe looking ahead, and what am I going to say no to? And what am I going to say yes to? And sometimes you have to say no. You have to close a door. You have to say, okay, that's it, final.
And Mars in Scorpio is going to give you the oomph to do that. A lot of people oomph. Yeah. So obviously for Scorpios, that's important, but also for Taurus to say no to a relationship, or even yes to one. But, some stuff like, it's interesting just to think about it from the point of view of, say, someone with Libra rising or a Libran. Where's this going to fall? The new moon, where's that Mars taking action? It's to do with money, possibly, or your value or your values. And you're going to be maybe saying no to certain values of other people's values, or you're going to have some awakening about values that's going to change stuff, that's going to change your point of view.
Yeah. And Aries, it's a really important month for Aries as well, with Mars, Aries ruling planet in Scorpio. All the sort of power, that Scorpio Taurus axis is about money again for Aries, but Scorpio is very much about, looking at joint finances, shared resources. It's kind of looking more about your future security. What do you need to put in place? Whether you're looking at mortgages or trying to get rid of a debt or thinking about savings, it's there. It's about kind of accumulating finances as best you can. And so there's this sense, I think, this month of, again, being able to look ahead at what's going to be, what do you want in the new year, in the coming up. So very much
thing that you're, because I'm sort of slightly thinking that it's all happening now, as in, the action is now, so you have to take action now, and you can kind of hopefully plan, but really there's maybe stuff that you're having to deal with on a sort of is coming at you in November, that it's not like you can sit back and plan. You're going to have to take action, like, for example, I think that for, say, Cancerians, this could be something to do if you've got kids, that your kids are going to be demanding of your attention, and some of them are going to, that you're going to have to do something around the children. I don't know what it is, and it could be really positive, but that's where the Mars is the kid, or your creativity may be on fire for Cancer, or you may have a passionate love affair, of course.
Yeah, which means you haven't got as much time for the kids, maybe.
Exactly. But there's stuff happening in that house of creativity. I mean, I think it's a really great month, actually, for a lot of, it should be a good month for Cancerians. Creativity is like given a boost of energy. And if you've been feeling really flat, then boom, off you go.
Yeah, and also Pisces, you know, it's an interesting one for all three water signs, isn't it? Because with so much going on in your 9th house, which is, you know, one of the houses I think that's very much about the imagination. It's about finding that inspiration, what inspires you, you know, going in deep into new study or, you know, philosophy, spirituality, or your religion, your faith. Sorry?
Or just teaching. I mean, I'm just looking at that and thinking, actually, I'm doing quite a lot of teaching in this month. I'm doing some lectures at the Astrological Association and one lodge in London, and I'm preparing one for a core curriculum. So that is, you know, busy, and also busy traveling or expanding your mind, really, for Pisces or other people's minds.
Yeah.
And you've got to be on the ball, and you have to be ready to be quick, because I think that's the other thing about now that Mercury is moving quickly forward, and Scorpio as well. It will be on, when does Mercury go into Scorpio?
On the 6th of no, the 5th of November, bonfire night.
On the 5th. Oh, that's rather good, isn't it? On the 5th of November. So you're going to have Mercury and Mars and the Sun in there, all urging you to be fast.
Yeah, I think for Pisces as well, it's about, you know, Scorpio is a sign that likes to be organized, actually.
Yeah.
You know, out of all the water signs, probably, you know, it's a fixed sign. So it's moving fast. So therefore you need to, you know, get your spreadsheets. I don't know, but do something that gives you a sense that you're in charge, that you're in control, that you're the one with the power. I mean, power for me is such a Scorpio word. And it's how you wield that power, you know, whether you do it for good or for evil, actually, with Scorpio, the archetype Scorpio. So it's, and I think teaching, when you're talking about teaching, that is, you're in a more powerful position, aren't you? You're stepping up in some way. So that's perfect for Pisces, actually, in the month ahead for doing that.
And meanwhile, there is this sort of, one of the things about all these planets being in Scorpio is that they will then make the square. They make the square to Saturn and the opposition to Uranus. So we have the opposition, big opposition from the Sun and Moon on the new moon to Uranus. But then, you know, Mars comes up behind them and will make that square to Saturn and the opposition to Uranus, this is very feisty energy in the mid-month. So, you know, there will be people having arguments.
Yeah, there will be battles, won't there? There's going to be some battles that you're up against, and you've got to be, you know, if you're going to get hold of that Scorpio energy, you've got to be quite strong. You've got to be quite firm moving forwards. I mean, Uranus always brings this rebellious edge as well. You know, not wanting to be. Saturn restricts, Uranus is the rebel. I mean, we've seen it in this, you know, powerful square aspect that's dominated 2021, Saturn, Aquarius, Uranus, Taurus, and it's not going away in 2022. Doesn't make an exact square, but those two planets are still, you know, they're still tussling with one another, rules versus rebellion. It's a really lively combination. And bring the Scorpio energy into the mix, and there's more power around it. You know, there's more kind of fixed, it's, I think, in a way, more fixed beliefs. You know, it's this I'm right, you're wrong will be more, you'll feel that more strongly moving forward.
Yeah, I think that people will be, you know, having said all that, I also think that it's important to, you know, we were talking about engaging and disengaging with astrology.
Yeah.
And one of the important things to know is that you don't have to engage in these rows. You know, you can leave that to other people.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. But that is maybe the energy around you, but that's a transitional energy. It's not going to stick around. You don't have to be drawn into this stuff. And if you are kind of drawn in, you can actually look at the astrology and think, well, yeah, actually this month is a bit of an argumentative month. And sometimes arguments are important because they're about drawing boundaries. Okay. And this is where I think that these energies are working together, because you need to sometimes have a row in order to get someone to respect your boundaries. And that's Saturn, respect my boundaries, respect what I have to say. And Saturn is powerful in Aquarius. It is actually stronger than Uranus in Taurus, even though Uranus is a strong outer planet. Saturn is a very strong planet. And it's about respect. And I actually think that Uranus is a kind of about disrespect. It's about knocking over the traces and flashes of insight, etc. But the Scorpio is also rather, it's about power, but it's also about understanding hierarchies and understanding deeply how things actually work. And it'll be interesting to see how this contrast. And of course, the Saturn is the sign of the establishment, and government and control. And I think that I think we're going to see some stuff happening, I must say, in November. Some keeping over the traces, and also some, and this may not even be by people, it may be by circumstances. As we've seen in the past month, certain circumstances have changed, like that have become very evident that there's a supply chain problem, which sounds really boring to say it's a supply chain problem. It's crucial to the entire functioning of the capitalist system. We've got this huge problem with personnel. There aren't enough people to move stuff around. There's not enough, this is everything is grinding to a sort of gridlocky halt. And there's this month also could be everybody may be trying to push ahead, but then there's this fixed energy with how do we do that, It's interesting because all these signs we're talking about, Scorpio is a fixed sign, Saturn is in a fixed sign, and Uranus is in a fixed sign. These are, and everything, all the other signs are sort of maybe trying to kind of push things forward like that, both Jupiter and Pluto. But these ones can become, there can be head to head, it can be very dogged. And that you don't have to engage with that.
And there's also, I think that there's possibility with Scorpio, when you're talking about supply chains and stuff, there's a thing with Scorpio that can be quite selfish, mine. There's a greed, there's an ownership around Scorpio, and there's, what annoys me tremendously is that whenever there's any, message about things are going to be in short supply, people rush out and buy loads of them. So I'm going to be all right, it's mine, I'm all right. So I think that's just going to be, that may just expand moving forward in November, people buying stuff for Christmas. So there's talk in the UK about nothing being on the shelves by Christmas because everybody's stockpiling, which is part of this Scorpio, it's part of the Scorpio energy. There's this holding on to things, not wanting to let go, and not wanting to share equally, actually, which that's what this sort of clash is about as well.
You can say that because you're the Scorpio. I couldn't possibly comment.
Well, the thing is, I don't do it. I really don't do it. There's a part of me that gets into, oh, maybe I should. And then I think, no, just, I'm much more kind of just wanting to trust, realizing that it's not the answer and it makes things worse by doing that. So.
Yeah, but it's also not the answer. It's really not an individual issue. It's really not. It's a global issue. I mean, it's worse in this country because of Brexit.
Sure.
But it's also a global issue, and it's not. And the point is that even if we suddenly start getting, olive oil again or whatever it is we're going to have a shortage of, it's not about that. It's about the fact that these supply lines are too long. It's like when Napoleon went and thought he was going to, conquer Russia. and instead his entire army was frozen in the snow because his supply lines were too long. And that's really where we are on the planet, perhaps, is that supply lines have become too long.
I agree, but there's also individual choice about how, we respond to what's going on in the world. I think that's where, that's also about this clash, this Saturn-Uranus clash. There's the individual response to it. You disagree with that, I can tell.
Yeah, I just don't see how that helps with supply line. You're basically going to have shortages of stuff. There's really nothing you can do as an individual, really. Even if you think, okay, I'm not going to stockpile bog roll, that makes zero difference. To
the big picture, I agree, but I think it's still important to decide who you are. That's what I mean by individual. How am I going to respond to this? Am I going to react and just kind of panic and go all out, or do I want to, be a person who thinks more about other people as well, how we share things? So that's what I mean by individual. No, it's not going to sort out the global situation. I agree with that, Christina. But I still think it's, we're human beings. So, we have to look at how we respond.
Yeah, okay. But
let's cut that
debate. So we can have a debate because, there's a whole question about, there are individual actions that are really important and can help, like wearing a mask. Okay. And that is individual action, which could stop someone getting ill.
Yeah.
And yet I go out and actually people are not wearing masks in this country. And my neighbors are both ill. It has consequences. So it's also a matter of figuring out which of your individual actions actually have real consequences and which is just theory. So people get annoyed about other people stockpiling. I'm not stockpiling because I'm at Pisces, you know what I mean? I'm like, whatever. But I think that is minor. It's minor. It's not because everybody's buying tin tomatoes that we've got a problem. It's because they're not truck drivers. It's not. But you can take individual actions which actually do have real world consequences. And it's interesting to me that people may not be choosing, and this is about Scorpio focus, is choosing which battles to fight and which not to fight. And this is sort of my advice with all of this is choose your battles. Don't engage if it's not important, and understand how to prioritize what is important and what is not important. And that is a lesson from Scorpio, which is a sign that's a very good at battle, at choosing which, I'm going to take out that thing, which is the crucial key to the whole problem. This is why we get Scorpio surgeons,
And I think this month is going to show that, we're not all going to choose the same battles. And people are going to be under pressure from other people who, this is the right thing to do. That's going to be part of what's going on with this astrology as well. We're not all going to be choosing the same battle to fight. I think that's
Scorpio is about value as well.
Yeah.
And the Taurus Scorpio axis is an axis of value.
Yeah.
And that includes literally value as in money, but also value as in values. So what if you value, if you value your community, what is the thing that you're going to do that's actually helpful?
Yeah.
And I think that takes a bit of intelligence to sort of work that through and figure out what's actually valuable. And not to succumb to sort of general negativity. That's because there's a lot of negativity. We love Scorpio, blah, 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 but there's a lot of negativity in the Scorpio sometimes in the Scorpio month.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the Uranus and Taurus helps, because Uranian energy is future-oriented energy. It's energy about, how, it's energy that thinks outside the box, and it's energy that, it's a very positive, practical energy because it's in Taurus. So it's about practical responses. And actually, I think the individual, individually, we may not be making the most practical responses.
Well, I think we need to leap on to the astrology, because we've kind of, I kind of feel we've gone slightly off tangent, and I think we need to bring it back to what's happening in the month ahead. Because you and I are battling now, it's great.
Because I know there are things that we don't agree on, so we better move on.
We need to make
it. That's what makes a good podcast, right? What if we just said yes all the time to each other? Yes, Sally.
Yeah, I know. It's excellent. And it's mirrors what's happening.
Yeah,
I think we've got to talk about the eclipse.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's do the eclipse, and then we can have a cup of tea. Okay, eclipse. Eclipse coming.
We've got a new eclipse cycle coming, and probably what we're talking about already is a bit going to be a new eclipse cycle. It starts November the 19th with the lunar eclipse cutting across the Taurus Scorpio axis, and this Taurus Scorpio axis eclipse cycle will continue for the next 2 years. So this is the first one in these new signs. Obviously, straight away about money. It's going to be a really interesting couple of years for the money markets with this eclipse cycle. Also, Uranus in Taurus is already changing money, cryptocurrencies, digital, cashless, and eclipses, I think, have quite a similar energy sometimes to Uranus. They bring the unexpected. And there's it's kind of a roller coaster ride. It's not stable. There's accelerated growth, but there's big dips as well. So really interesting eclipse cycle starting for money. Also, I think, for the Earth, that Taurus Scorpio axis is about, it's about the Earth. It's about what we produce, what we grow. Scorpio is, regeneration, recycling. So it's very much about that. People fear eclipses, don't they?
They do, and they shouldn't, because actually eclipses can be great.
Yeah,
just a release of energy. And they're just like a super full moon, basically, more of a full moon. And this one is actually quite a tight. I'm looking at the actual chart. It's quite a tight eclipse. It's only 4 degrees. But it's interesting. It's one of those turning eclipses, right? So it's going from one sign into the next. We're moving from the eclipses in Gemini, Sagittarius, which we'll have next month. We'll have one in Sagittarius, but we're moving from those into the Taurus Scorpio axis. So we're moving from the axis of information to the axis of money, and ownership, and power, which is what we've just been discussing.
Yeah.
And this first one is, it's important for anybody who's got, like me, who's got something at 27, 28 degrees of Taurus. It's actually it's on my node, my north node. It can be a turning point. Eclipses are turning points, and they open a door.
Yeah, and also I think what's important, I think there are some things to remember with eclipses. I wouldn't launch anything on an eclipse date, because, an eclipse there's a shadow that falls, and you have to wait for sort of the veil to lift in a way before you can see the true picture, what's in front of you. So I would never, I always wait a few days after an eclipse to see what happens. It does often bring external change. I think the other thing that's really important with eclipses is that sometimes people say, oh, it fell on this planet and nothing happened. Well, it's setting something in motion, it's seeding something. And that eclipse is still powerful, I always think, until the next eclipse, which is 6 months later. So, things are getting seeded, and it may be that the turning point comes further down the line as well. And also it will be the whole eclipse cycle. When you look back on it, you'll see that there were some key turning points in the areas of your life where these eclipses fall, that, the wheel of fortune has shifted. Something has changed.
So this is like the next 18 months we're going to be having eclipses in these two signs. And this is the first one. So it's like the opening shot. So it's important, it's useful to pay attention and see if anything kind of happens, or, maybe not on the eclipse, but in the following 2 weeks or the following month, whether there's something that really shifts.
Yeah.
And we're also saying goodbye to the information eclipses,
Yeah.
which have been interesting. And the eclipse is in Gemini.
Yeah.
In Gemini and Sagittarius. So that's, Geminis are being released from that eclipse, those series of eclipses, Geminis and Sagittarians, and now Taurians and Scorpios are going to have, you're likely to have important things in your life change, like having babies and going to university and things, really big things like that, or leaving home, or and it's less about so it's beginnings and endings, and wherever this falls, you're probably, you may have some kind of ending, actually.
That's a Taurus. They often coincide with endings. They often do, very much so. So and what about, I'm just thinking about, for that Gemini Sagittarius, what's going to be shifting? Where do you turn your attention to? And for both those signs, it's partly going to be putting your maybe health, your well-being first, taking care of you, slowing things down. If you've been in a situation, maybe a kind of relationship situation, a competitive situation, it's about maybe looking at taking care of yourself now, slowing things down. Both, we're moving from, also Gemini is an air sign, Sagittarius a fire sign, so both quite extrovert. Taurus and Scorpio, earth sign, water sign. So it's a sort of going back to basics in a way. It's slowing, there's a sense of getting steady, finding your feet in a way.
Yeah, and I think, for anybody, this is really quite an important shift for Leo Aquarius. And
absolutely.
That we've got a lot of energy in Aquarius anyway already, because of Saturn and Jupiter being in there. And now we're getting the eclipses on an axis that is it's at a right angles. So it's a hard, it's at a hard angle to the Aquarian energy. So your Aquarius and Leos are, frankly, you're going to probably have changes at home and at work, and doors will probably open and slam shut also. So, and some of those, like I said, it's a classic one is babies and things like that with eclipses. So I think also for, Capricorns, for example, this is can be quite a creative, cycle, the cycle of eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio that's coming up. You may have some openings there, you may be feeling more creative, or you may actually have a kid. Or grandchild even, and ditto for Cancerians. This is also can be very opening, in terms of actually in terms of creativity also. Like you may finally get your creative work out there, you may finally get an audience for it, whatever, and I'm using creativity in a very wide sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this could be that you're running a business doing, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I think, that, the fifth house, that creativity, I always think the best phrase for it is what you give birth to.
Yeah.
What you sort of, and that can, it can be a literal baby, but it's what you give birth to. So that can play out in different ways. It doesn't just have to be artistic, does it? It's kind of, it's whatever your thing is, whatever your skill or your talent, it's kind of, or your USP, we want to get, get in with the terms. It's about that.
So I think this is quite an exciting end to the month, and it doesn't look like a horrible eclipse to me. It gets quite a nice aspect from, it has got Jupiter on the pretty much on the bendings almost. It's got Jupiter kind of halfway along, so it may have pack quite a lot of power actually in there. It may be quite expansive.
Yeah, I like it as well for, I think it's an interesting one with Jupiter involved for Virgo as well. Because, you know, the moon in Taurus is Virgo's, you know, that's travel. It's where you broaden your horizons. It's the bigger picture of life. So, you know, it might be I don't know, your desire to live abroad, or, you know, your urge to sort of expand your life in some way. There's going to be a big calling around that. Jupiter very often linked to, you know, religion, faith, your spiritual path as well. So it could be quite an interesting opening this for Virgo, looking ahead for the next 2 years.
And also this makes a very good aspect, this eclipse, to Pluto in Capricorn, interestingly enough. So that's also quite helpful. And it gives it another boost of power. Actually, something may come out of it, you know. It's not, and it's not negative. It's also interesting that so many of the planets now are coming to one side of the nodes. And then next month it'll be even more so. So they're all going to be packed in to the side of the sky. So there is quite a feeling of kind of lopsidedness there for a while.
Yeah. I mean, even Neptune's pulled in.
Yeah.
You know, Neptune's at 20 and is trine Mercury and Scorpio, you know, around that eclipse. So the outer planets and the slower moving planets are all kind of pulled into the new moon and then this eclipse. There's a lot of power from them this month, which does often mean, you know, it can be quite a big time. It can be a lot of events going on. There's significant events taking place. So altogether, a very interesting month, wouldn't you say? It is.
Yeah, it is.
I think feisty month, as we've just proven, because we're quite feisty today.
Well, it's because of this Mars-Sun conjunction is ongoing, isn't it? You know, so it's a feisty month, but it's also a month really that you can actually probably get some stuff going. You can push things. There's traction this month.
Yeah,
that's how I would put it. I think there's traction. It may be, and it's tough things that can get going because there's a lot of this fixed sign energy. So it's, you know, that Mars is like pushing this really, I can just feel like this huge ox cart being pushed forward.
Yeah, and you've got to push. You've got to kind of, you know, work hard. Actually, this month, I think it is, you know, get things done, be productive, you know, step up your game in a way. It's not a month for lounging around and doing nothing. That's for sure.
So
we're going to be busy.
I'm exhausted already. I'm just thinking.
The Pisces wants to lie down and just
lie down and let it all. I just hope other people will come and deal with it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Like my electricians. Okay, so.
Okay, let's say goodbye. It's been fun. Have a good month, everybody, and we'll see you next month. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.